Hey guys, this is John, and I am back with what is probably going to be my last iteration of a categorizer or multi-item slot reservation-free multi-item sorter. So this is a new and greatly improved version. So I will just give you a little walkthrough, tell you what it does and what it can do. So if you're new here, of course, a categorizer will sort items into the output chest depending on, whatever items are in their corresponding index chest. So this is all redstone and then wood and, some stone, wool, glass. Okay. So this new version is the basic setup is completely different. So the output is still going to be the same because frankly I don't think you can get anything better than that. At least not that I, come up with yet. The output is still the same, and I went ahead and just filled in the chest because I don't know if anybody realized that that's why I left, so much room under here was so that you could put in more hoppers and more, outputs. But so this, even though it may look similar to my last model, this is completely different. The filter assembly is completely different. So we no longer have the, the batch filter and the controller. So all that is completely gone. So what it can do, so I'll go over some of the differences. So it's still, once it begins to sort the item, it's still going to be hopper speed. If you put in multiple stacks of an item, like before, if you go mining and you have, 4 stacks of cobblestone or whatever, I'll just go ahead and show you. Okay, if you have a few stacks of stone, it's going to pull out the stone before it, will start on the next item. And this has a start button, by the way. You have to have a start button on this model. So it went through the index, found the location for the stone, and then it's going to start pulling it down at hopper speed. And that's all going to go to, its proper location. And even though you have a start button on this model, it has a setup to where that if you still have items in the chest, then once you start it, so you could put 15 different items, whatever, put a few stacks in here. Once you start the machine, as long as there are items left in the input, it will keep running until, it sorts everything, and then it'll turn off, So some of the differences, the last model could not do items that stack to 16. Those would break it, and of course, if you put any non-stackable items in, that would break it as well. So this is completely different and unbreakable now. So once we get done with the stone, so I can show you that now it can sort. Let's just pull out some levers. So now it can sort individual items. So it just finished the stone. So it's going to look for the lever. And we can wait a second. Okay, so it can sort individual items. And here you see I have some signs. And it can also deal with the non-stackable items. So we just put the signs in the cake. Alright, so it took one sign, it's going to go through the index, and then those will start to sort. Okay? And then once that gets finished, it will look for the non-stackable item, which can't, of course, be indexed. So all it's going to do is send that to the overflow, which we can see in a second. Okay, and there you go. So anything that doesn't have an index or anything that's non-stackable will just come into the overflow here. So some of the differences, I guess I will go over and tell you how the new filter works. So I'll tell you how that works, and then I'll get into how it works with the minecart. So I had to do a lot of work on trying to figure out how to, separate and batch the items. So by item type, anything that is an item that stacks to 64 or 16 or non-stackable. So how can you make a machine that can differentiate between all the items and sort items by type, to pull out all of one item type and then, stop and then search for the next item type and then stop. So it was pretty complicated to actually get to where I am now. And, I had to do a lot of work with timing and, locking and unlocking hoppers and all that until I just realized how simple it was to make something like this. So here you see we just have a normal item filter. This is like a general type that I always use. So you see we have just a comparator, a torch, repeater going to lock the bottom hopper. For the filter, we leave it open with 19111, which means that whenever you put in an item, it's going to unlock and just pull the item down. So to make this batch items by item type, as well as, being able to handle items that stack to 64, 16, and non-stackable items, right? The way that you make it is actually really simple. So you take a normal item filter like this, and you simply make a, I guess I would call it just like a one-tick generator. So you make this little like a one-tick generator coming off the top, and you send that up to lock the top hopper. Okay. So if you would have seen my previous videos with the slot reservation free multi-item sorters, the kind of the standalone kind, then this may look familiar. So all we're doing here is whenever we have an item in the filter, the comparator is going to get a signal strength of 2, which is going to turn this line off for 1 tick to allow the filter hopper to pull down an item. And then 1 tick later, the lower hopper here is going to unlock to pull an item down. Okay, so you add a 1 tick generator on the top, and then for the side here is really, really simple. For the side here, you just add a repeater to where when that gets a signal of 2, the repeater is going to turn on and, cut off the comparator, right? So let me show you what this does. So add a hopper there. So just say that I put in some redstone and let's get some signs here. Okay, so I put in a redstone and some signs and how about some powered rails? Alright, so first let's just do the powered rail. Alright, so if I inject a powered rail, what's going to happen is it will unlock the filter, which will pull down all of the powered rails. Those will go to the output, and then the system is just going to lock up. Okay, so it didn't touch anything else, and it pulled down every powered rail. Alright, so next we can do the signs. So it's going to pull out all of the signs and then stop. And then finally with the redstone. Okay. Alright, so you see the general idea. This is going to be your input chest. So you put items in here, right? And the way that this works with a minecart, so just say that we have a minecart or hopper minecart here, right? And we have filler. So if this is going to be our input, these are all the items that we want to be sorted, right? So what we're going to do is use the hopper minecart to actually take out one item, okay? So just like on that model there, I would take a matching item, right, and throw it into this hopper here. And when this hopper here pushed it into the filter, that would unlock it and allow it to pull down all of that item type, right? So what we're using is the hopper minecart. So the hopper minecart will pull out one item, whichever item is first. So it's going to pull out one rail. Now, if you imagine that this goes to the index, right? So the hopper minecart is going to go around with the rail. It's going to unlock the index for that item. And then it's going to come back, and we're going to use this little, this is, just imagine this is a hopper line. So we're going to use the hopper line here to feed the item back into the bottom filter. So because it's going to be, a rail, what that means is that's going to unlock the system and allow it to pull down all of that, all of the rails in this case, or all of whatever the item type is. Okay, so let's just demonstrate that. So we pulled out one rail, and then it's going to unlock, pull down all of the rails, right? So that will leave the hopper minecart empty. So just say that it finished sorting, so it relocked up all the index hoppers and all that. So then we can go for the next item. So in this case, it's going to pull out the sword because that does not have a location on the index. All that does is go out to the output and then run into the overflow at the end. Okay, so then we trigger that to search for the next one. Okay, so you can kind of see the setup and how it works. We're just going to remove one item, and then use that to search the index, and then come back and insert that into the filter, which is going to allow it to pull down all of that item type, if there is more than one of that item. So this is why it can also do individual items, because it will take that item, right? So it took the button, and then now it's going to come back and inject the button into the filter, which is going to, send that to the output. Okay, so this is completely different from my last version. I was really surprised by how, how simple this is. So this is the same as that, except without the facade and all that in the front. So there are a couple things that you're going to have to know whenever you make anything based off of a hopper minecart. So a hopper minecart can pull down, what is it, like 20 items per second. So whenever you launch the hopper minecart, to get it to only pull out one item, you have to have 2 powered rails, and the chest has to be at least 1 block away. That's why I have the chest here. Of course, if I had the powered rails pushed up right below it, then they would pull out more. They would pull out more than one item, right? And with a system like this, you can't have more than one item in the hopper minecart, because then, you're only dropping off one item here. So then you would have an item left in the hopper if it pulled out more than one item. So you have to use 2 rails, and you have to make sure that they get powered for, I think it's at least like 8 or 10 ticks to be able to get the minecart up to full speed, Otherwise, if it was moving too slow, then it would pull out more than one item. Which, that's actually pretty tough to get that long of a power signal to be able to power a minecart, automatically in a system like that. So what I'm doing here is actually putting the chest above a decline. So if you have it to where the hopper minecart can only, pull out the item like while it's going down this little hill, then it can only pull out one item, so you can be a little more, uh, you know, lax with kind of your setup. So anyway, hopper minecarts, put it on an incline like that or a decline, and that'll help you make sure you only pull out one item. Aside from that, you can see that I have these hoppers here with the furnace on top. So one of the other things I learned is that the hopper minecart coming down this decline here will actually have an item pulled out of it by this hopper. Sometimes, it's kind of buggy. So if you put something like a furnace on top instead of a normal block, then it can only check the furnace for items, and it'll never be able to pull, an item from the hopper minecart. So keep that in mind whenever you have hoppers going around corners or, on a decline or an incline, it can actually pull an item out. So you need to keep that, be aware of that. Also, the item return up here, the reason why I put the hopper so far back is because if you leave the hopper like over the edge here, or like on this one, see I have this hopper like one block back from the edge. The reason why is because if you put a hopper here at the edge, as a minecart goes and then falls down, that hopper can actually pull two items out of the minecart. So you're going to want to keep it offset or keep it further back down the line so the hopper minecart can have enough speed to, pass it up without the hopper pulling more than one item out. So there are a few quirks, like when you're working with hopper minecarts because of things like that. But overall, the system is very, it's been very reliable. I haven't had anything break yet. And, I know it's kind of thick and chunky, but, I'm not the greatest when it comes to compacting things like that. I got it to work, and it took me a while to figure all this out. So I got it to work, and I was just pretty satisfied with that. But, I don't mind how chunky this setup is, because honestly, now you can sort literally every item in the game. And you can expand this, infinitely. You can expand the output infinitely if you wanted to, which I don't know if I covered before, but if you wanted to, this was the 20 wide, output. So if you have a setup like this to where you only have the one reset line here, the way that you make sure that all of these hoppers stay locked while still being able to put a repeater down is you just do, like that. Just put a couple blocks on top of the hoppers, or if you had droppers here, power those with dust, right? And then you can just run your repeater in the front. So all of these hoppers are going to be locked here, because if you didn't have that, then this hopper here underneath the repeater is going to be unlocked, So that's just an easy way to expand this if you needed to. So I have more of a broken down model here that I can show you, just to show you the different parts. So the output is still the same. We're using the comparators here to power the line. And that's going to power the little, pulse extender time delay thingy. Still have the game loading switch, because these hoppers will still unlock whenever you load the game, which I realized on that one that I forgot to add it because I joined the game and then put items into sort, and I heard a whole lot of clicking, and I went and looked back there and everything was all jumbled up. So make sure you have something like this just in case you forget to, relock this thing every time you log in. But anyway, so we have the same output section. That's all the same. So down here we have the filter, which is just the exact same thing that I showed you over there. It's really simple. And we're using the two little hoppers here going to a chest to feed the the side input for the item filter. We have the hopper minecart running on an incline like that to pull an item out. So all it does is it comes and pulls out an item, goes through the index. So if the item is indexed, it will unlock that output. Then it comes back up to the top where it will have the item removed by the hopper and then fall down here. And when the item goes back into the filter, that's going to unlock the filter, allow it to pull the items down, where they will go into the dropper elevator, and that just runs up to the output. So I would just, let's see, I had some junk in here to test it. So 11 redstone and some stone. And we're using a little comparator here to read the input chest. Okay, so the items are going to start to sort and go to the output. Oh, that was quick. What happened here? Did I break something? Why didn't we reset? Redstone, redstone. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't have anything. Oops. Yeah, you're gonna have to be careful with the way that you set these things up, because yeah. So I put the comparators in the wrong place. Let's see. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah. Okay. So I put the comparators in the wrong place. So there you go. Okay. So that didn't send a signal to the output. Alright, so it's going to do the cobblestone. So we have a comparator here reading the input chest. What you see is going to turn off that torch, which is going to allow it to reset. Let's see when that gets done. Okay, so you can see that whenever we get done with an item, this line here is going to be powered, and that's going to cause this line to turn off for 1 tick. So if we still had items in here, then this torch would be turned off, right? So what that means is, let me go ahead and show you. So we can just put whatever in here. Okay, so this torch is now going to be turned off. So that means that whenever this gets done sorting, this repeater here is going to turn off for 1 tick, and we're forming an AND gate here. So if we have items and if the sorter gets finished, then that's going to power this torch, which will send a pulse down here to that repeater, which will power the minecart to go on again. So we can just simulate that here. Okay. So that's why if you have an item left in the input, that's why it will continue to operate, you know. And then that is going to come down and go into the overflow, and there you go. So it's a really, really simple system. I'm just kind of showing you the general parts here because, you know, somebody else could probably do a better job than this of making the input, you know. Like I had a few too many hoppers here, more than I would like. You know, I just kind of threw it all together. But I mean, honestly, it's a really great little system. You know, it can do every item now, from individual items up to, you know, non-stackable items. And it can do multiple stacks at once with, you know, hopper speed. So it's really, honestly, it's a really fast machine. And if you're looking at this and, you know, seeing how much work it is and kind of intimidated by something like this, you know, this is so much cheaper than a lot of different type of sorters, you know. I mean, because the amount of hoppers that we're using compared with, you know, something else based on how many items we can put in here, you know, like the wood chest here. I mean, that's an insane amount of items that you can send into one output chest, you know. And the great thing about a system like this, you know, you can just keep adding items into these, you know, like if that's my redstone, you know, and I wanted to add, you know, whatever, you know, add an activator rail, then you just, excuse me, you just come up and put it in the chest, reset the index, you know, and now anytime you get an activator rail, it's always going to go into that output, you know. I mean, it's really a great system. I mean, and you know, if you needed to, you can expand it really, really easily. It's pretty cheap. Um, so anyway, that's about it. This is probably going to be my last version because honestly, this is probably the best that it gets as far as the, you know, the item searching with the hopper minecart and all that. Some of the aesthetics may change, you know, maybe it might get smaller, might get more compact, but you know, honestly, it's a really good machine. It works really well and it's pretty stable. So if anybody has any questions, or if anybody would like a, you know, more thorough tutorial or breakdown or anything else like that, or if you have any ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments. Until then, I guess I will see you at the next one. All right, thanks for watching.